I'm Mark Chestnut for LatinFlyer.com. When I was younger, I traveled quite a bit with my mother, at least a few times a year, and over the course of growing up and traveling with her, she taught me a few very important things about travel. My mother's 86 years old now, so she doesn't travel quite as much as she used to anymore, but we do make one fairly big trip every year now, a transcontinental U.S. trip from New York State out to California to visit her sister. She needs a wheelchair when she travels by air now to get from flight to flight and within the airport, and she uses a cane when she walks. So over the past few years, she and I have learned together a whole new set of suggestions and travel tips for anyone who may be traveling and needs special assistance, or if you may be traveling with an elderly parent or relative. My mother is actually going to be helping us out a little bit with the tips today, so I thank you very much, Mama, for helping out. Number one, when you're reserving a hotel room, it's a good idea to reserve an accessible room, even if your parent or the person you're traveling with may not need all of the features of a so-called accessible room.
Well, a handicapped room would have safety things that are good for anybody, whether they're crippled up or not, like railings along the bathtub or near the toilet to help you up and down and for safety for anybody.
Number two is also important. Bring along lots of single $1 bills and a few $5 bills as well, so you'll be able to tip the valets and the other people who may help you out along the way, push the wheelchair, etc., etc.
I think you should tip anybody that helps you out, and especially people that you know are working for a minimum wage and are dependent on some tip for help to fill out their salary. Especially if they're cheerful about it, then I would be or am a very generous tipster.
It's always a good idea to actually check your bags. You never know when you may be the person who's actually pushing the wheelchair from one gate to another if there's a last-minute gate change. So it's always good to be prepared, not be weighted down by too much stuff so you'll be able to help out the person that you're traveling with. Number four, ask the valet to leave the wheelchair with you at the gate once you've arrived at the gate from which your flight is departing. That's because, first of all, the person you're traveling with may need to go to the restroom before the flight takes off. Also, there's always gate changes nowadays, so you never know when you may be the one pushing at the last minute from one gate to the next. So always good to not have to search for a wheelchair at the last minute. Number five, you can expect to be among the very first people to board the plane, so enjoy that kind of priority access boarding. But you should also be prepared to be the last person off the plane, because everyone else, just about everyone else, will be getting out before you. So keep that in mind, especially when you're planning on connection times in airports that you're stopping at along the way. Tip number six is very important, and a flight attendant actually taught my mother and me this one. Once the plane is landed, once it taxis to the gate, if you're waiting for a wheelchair, don't get off the aircraft until you actually see the wheelchair waiting for you.
They told us about not to get off until the requested wheelchair is right out there, because the plane can't leave until you are off. So if they see you sitting there waiting, they're going to make sure that wheelchair gets there pretty soon.
If you're still on the plane, believe me, they're going to keep calling and make sure that that wheelchair arrives as quickly as possible so they can get you off the plane and clean, service the plane, get it ready for the next flight. Tip number seven is to rent a four-door car. Even if you think a two-door may be good enough, may have enough space for you, sometimes in certain models, you know how it is, the back seat may be more comfortable for the front seat, especially for your parents or for the person you're traveling with who may need a little extra space or a little extra comfort. So having a four-door car just gives you that much more accessibility and options when you're traveling. And that wraps up our tips for today. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Mark Chestnut for LatinFlyer.com.
I would hate to travel without my son lending a helping hand. So go while you can. That's my message.